This is Rick Rule for Rule Investment Media. This interview is in support of the Mining Journal Select Conference in London, July 1st and 2nd. The purpose of these interviews is to introduce the attendees to the issuers even before the conference, allowing the attendees to allocate their time and capital at the conference more efficiently. If you see something in these interviews that interests you, I would encourage you to reach out to the company even before the conference so that contact can be established. And as I say, so you can allocate your time and your capital much more efficiently at the conference. Today's interview is with Simon Rollason of Aterian Exploration. Simon, first of all, thank you for your efforts on behalf of shareholders, and thank you too for your support of the Mining Journal Select Conference.
Absolute pleasure, Rick.
Let's begin with you. The buck stops with you. Who are you? What have you done before in exploration in Africa that would cause our attendees to be interested in what you had to say around these topics?
Well, thanks, Rick. So I'm a geologist by training, and I've been doing this now for over 30 years, as my knees will testify. I spend a lot of time out on the projects, looking at the field, observations, working with the teams on the ground. I've spent probably the last 14, 15 years also working on the boards of several AIM-listed companies as well. In my past, I've looked at a range of commodities. I've been able to have the experience of working all the way through from project generation, the blank piece of paper, through to grassroots exploration. I've worked in production environments. So I've worked underground. I've worked on open pits. One particular project was a really interesting one where I went through from the exploration through to a producing asset. So it was living the whole sort of mine build, feasibility, financing side of things as well. So it was really sort of good experience to get the whole spectrum. In terms of Africa, I'm very familiar with it. I've worked across Africa in many of the different countries. I basically grew up out there, so I'm very familiar with the terrain.
Is there anybody else among senior management that you would suggest has African industry specific experience that we need to know about?
Well, we run a fairly small board. There's two executives, myself and Charles Bray, the chairman of the company. Charles, by background, is an investment banker and familiar with capital markets. And through that process, he's had quite a bit of interaction with different African countries. We've got the three NEDs. We've got Kazra Pazeki, who's also got investment background and capital equity finance background. We've got Devon Morea, who's a South African individual. He's very familiar with Africa, of course. He's involved in green energy and green technology investments. And we have Alistair Hume, who's the representative of Elemental Altus. Elemental is the company that we acquired the Moroccan portfolio from in 2022, and sort of sits on our board representing his interests. So, you know, there's a wide range of experience there. But I think, you know, having people having worked in Africa is key. But also, I think in the current environment with junior mining companies, it's really important that you have the finance and investment people on the board as well.
You are really sort of Pan-African in the sense that you're currently involved in at least 3 African jurisdictions that I'm aware of. So perhaps we can briefly take it from the top. Tell us what you're trying to accomplish in each of Rwanda, Morocco, and Botswana.
Okay, well, let's start with Rwanda, because that's the country that the company originated in. I mean, I joined the company about 3 years ago, and at the time we were busy looking at the opportunities there for the tantalum and niobium. And it soon came to recognition that if you look at the host rocks for this style of mineralization, typically they would contain lithium. So through a process of exploration that we've been doing in Rwanda, we've identified that these pegmatites are fertile for lithium opportunities. And I think this work and this understanding led to the joint venture that we signed in last year with Rio Tinto. So they've taken over the exploration, management, and spend on the projects in Rwanda, which is really key for us because it frees up our time for other projects. So at the end of 2022, we picked up a portfolio from Elemental Altus in Morocco, which is primarily focused for copper with associated silver. Most of the projects are out in the Anti-Atlas. We're targeting primarily sedimentary hosted copper. A couple of the projects there have some scale opportunity, like the Tata project in the south. That's 154 square kilometers. We've identified some really good grades and intersections from the surface work that we've been doing so far. We have another project that's probably more advanced that we're going to do some drilling on shortly at Agdes. It's more of a hydrothermal copper silver play with some really good copper grades up to 20% and silver up to 450 grams per ton. And then during the course of this, because you don't want to be a one-trick pony. So we looked at Rwanda, we saw the opportunity to expand into Morocco, and the knowledge that we gained from the sedimentary copper environment. An opportunity came up at the beginning of this year in Botswana to acquire a small private company that had an asset in the Kalahari copper belt, but it also had 3 licenses around the Suapan area in the Mahadi region, which has been designated as having potential for lithium brine. So it kind of fitted what we were looking for. So our focus as the company remains really with copper and lithium. So lithium, hard rock lithium in Rwanda, lithium brines in Botswana, copper in Morocco.
Obviously, the presence of Rio Tinto in Rwanda does 2 things for you. It reduces the funding obligation, but it also establishes the fact that if Rio Tinto's interested, that the potential size of the opportunity is of interest. Tell me something about exploring across three countries and what you would say is the unanswered question or the catalyst involved in each project. What can investors look forward to? What unanswered questions will you be attempting to answer in the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, I think the question is what's under the ground, and that's what we're going to be looking for in the next couple of months. So the work progress undertaken in Rwanda by Rio Tinto has been tremendous and very fast and very effective, and they're hoping to sort of start drilling down there in the next couple of months on some of our projects, and I think that's going to be very exciting. We are planning in Morocco to drill on the one project at Agdes, a preliminary sort of scout drilling program. Then in Botswana, in the near future, we shall start ground operations. Since we took over the licenses, it's a lot of data interpretation and target generation that we're just completing now. So we've been looking at remote sensing, geophysics, reinterpreting all the data. But also, what's quite interesting in somewhere like Botswana and the Kalahari copper belt, where you have the sedimentary copper covered by about 30 to 40 meters of Kalahari sands in places. In Morocco, with our sedimentary copper, you can see it on the surface. So you can actually follow out the mineralized horizons on the surface. You can see the copper staining coming in. So in terms of the catalyst, really, it's going to be the upcoming drilling programs in both Rwanda and Morocco.
So Simon, in the next 12 to 18 months, prosecuting at least 2.5 exploration programs. I say 2.5 because Rio is obviously responsible for some of the funding in the operation in Rwanda. Tell us something about how much cash you anticipate needing, both for field work and for G&A in the 12 to 18 months timeframe. And if there's a shortfall between that number and the number that you have, talk to us about how you might get it.
Okay, there's a couple of things there, really. I mean, it all kind of depends on the drilling outcomes and on how we go forwards. But I think if we sort of present to investors the opportunity to participate in some funding in the company, and you've got Rio Tinto with positive drill results, we've got positive drill results in Morocco, then I think it's a different value proposition to what the company is today. But the model of using Rio Tinto as an earn-in joint venture partner, where we still maintain a significant shareholding, should they go through to execute the joint venture, it allows us to acquire cash through those joint ventures. Now, we have a significant portfolio in Morocco, and we believe it to be a high-class copper destination for companies. You look at the problems around the world with some of the jurisdictions and the politics and the requirement for copper. That what we intend to do is follow that partnership role, where we can sort of identify key partners on key projects, bring them in, and they'll bring cash into the company plus cash into the actual projects. But another thing that we've been working on in the background in Rwanda is the concept of commodity trading, because it's always historically been mined by the artisanal miners. International trading companies are in town and they buy the concentrates and they ship them out to refiners. We have a trading license in the country, and we're looking to see if we can get that activated and running in the next couple of months. It will start slowly, but with all things, you don't want to run before you can walk. And that will also start to bring in some income into the company. And we think that that sort of concept of bringing in partners with cash, but also trying to generate through the trading of the tantalum and the niobium in Rwanda to generate some cash flow will differentiate us from other junior explorers.
Well, I'm certainly a longtime proponent of the prospect generation business model, where you use your intellectual acumen and local commercial knowledge and attract funding from partners. You probably know I've been a shareholder in Altus and then Elemental Altus for 20 years. So I certainly applaud that funding strategy. But your job isn't to please me, Simon. Your job is to please the market. To the extent that the attendees at the conference want to learn more about Aterian, who do they contact and how do they contact that person?
That's very simple. I'll be the point person that they can contact straight away. If they can email me to begin with at my email, which is very simple. It's simon.rollason, Rollason, at aterianplc.com. As I said before, I do travel a lot. I'm often up a mountainside, but I will respond to the emails. But obviously with this show, I'll be in town and more than willing to meet up with people. If they need an alternative contact, the best person to contact would be Charles Bray, the chairman of the company, who's very active with conversations with our existing shareholders. And Charles can be contacted at charles.bray@arterianplc.com.
Simon, that's the perfect answer. The buck stops at the top.
Okay.
The CEO and the chairman want to talk to existing shareholders and new investors. Thank you, sir, for your efforts on behalf of shareholders. Thank you, too, for your sponsorship of the Mining Journal Select Conference. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much for the time, Rick.